Overview. The Compromise of 1850 acted as a temporary truce on the issue of slavery, primarily addressing the status of newly acquired territory after the Mexican-American War. Under the Compromise, California was admitted to the Union as a free state. The slave trade was outlawed in Washington, D.C. A strict new Fugitive Slave Act compels citizens of free states to assist in capturing enslaved people. The new territories of Utah and New Mexico would permit white residents to decide whether to allow slavery. Ultimately, the compromise did not resolve the issues of slavery's expansion. Instead, the fiery rhetoric surrounding the compromise further polarized the North and the South. The Mexican cession begs the slavery question. At the end of the Mexican-American War, the United States gained a large piece of western land known as the Mexican cession. The issue of whether to permit slavery in the territories organized in this new land consumed Congress at the end of the 1840s. During the war, Congressman David Walmart introduced the Walmart Proviso, a proposal to ban slavery in any new territory acquired from New Mexico. The measure passed in the House of Representatives but failed in the Senate. Congress was also seeking resolution for several other controversial matters. Anti-slavery advocates wanted to end the slavery trade in the District of Columbia, while pro-slavery advocates aimed to strengthen fugitive slave laws. But the most pressing problem was California. The many immigrants who had flocked to the territory upon the discovery of gold in the late 1840s had forced the question of its statehood and status as a slave or free state. The presidential election of 1848 determined which of these issues would be tackled first. Southern Mexican-American War military hero Zachary Taylor was elected president in 1848, much to the satisfaction of Southern slaveholders. Although Taylor himself owned more than 100 slaves, he prioritized national unity over sectional interests. He called on Congress to admit California as a free state. The Great Compromiser versus the Great Nullifier. The debate in Congress heated up quickly. Kentucky Senator Henry Clay, also known as the Great Compromiser, offered a series of resolutions, most of which aimed to limit slavery's expansion. Clay answered Taylor's request, calling for California to enter the Union as a free state, but he coupled his anti-slavery provision with a more robust federal fugitive slave law in hopes of sectional compromise. Clay's resolution angered the deathly ill John Calhoun, also known as the Great Nullifier, due to his role in the nullification crisis. Calhoun, too sick to speak, had his friend deliver a speech condemning Clay's proposal as endangering Southern rights and prosperity. Calhoun reinforced the need for a stronger fugitive slave law and condemned what he saw as Northern aggression, warning that the South would leave the Union sooner than submit to limitations on slavery. Soon thereafter, Massachusetts Senator Daniel Webster Carter Calhoun in his famous 7th of March speech. Webster called for national unity, famously declaring that he spoke not as a Massachusetts man, not as a Northern man, but as an American. While Webster denounced slavery, he regarded this union as much worse. Then Whig Senator William Seward declared that slavery was incompatible with the assertion in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, and proclaimed that slavery would be extinguished in the country. Seward's speech, in which he invoked the idea of a higher moral law than the Constitution and displayed the contradictions within the constitutional text itself, brought abolitionist rhetoric from the margins to the mainstream. The speeches made in Congress were published in the nation's newspapers. The American public followed with great interest, anxious to learn the issues of the day, especially the potential advance of slavery would be resolved. However, President Taylor Henry Clay's inability to cooperate stalled the government's resolution on slavery. Taylor then became suddenly ill and died within 5 days. Vice President Millard Fillmore succeeded him as president and worked with Congress to flesh out the final terms of the compromise. The provisions of the Compromise of 1850. The package of bills included 4 major provisions. First, a new stricter fugitive state slave law. Congress passed a strict fugitive slave law which required officials in all states and territories to assist with the return of enslaved people who had escaped to freedom or pay a substantial fine. Ordinary citizens were also required to assist in recapturing escapees or face fines or imprisonment. There were no safeguards to prevent opportunists from claiming that any person of African descent, including free black citizens of the North, was an escapee. Admission of California as a free state to balance the Fugitive Slave Act's concession to the South. Congress admitted California as a free state. Popular sovereignty in New Mexico and Utah territories. Congress avoided a direct decision on the question of slavery in the new territory of New Mexico and the territory of Utah, employing the principle of popular sovereignty. This allowed white residents of the territories to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery. A ban on slave trading in Washington, D.C. Anti-slavery advocates welcomed Congress' ban on the slave trade in Washington, D.C., although slavery itself continued to be legal in the capital. Most Americans breathed a sigh of relief over the deal brokered in 1850, choosing to believe it had saved the Union. However, the compromise stood as a temporary truce in an otherwise white-hot sectional conflict. Popular sovereignty paved the way for unprecedented violence in the West over the question of slavery.